Yeah, I understand. And the problem is evident, in my opinion, is the thing that I'm struggling with by Sunderland post that I played. And I believe that when it comes to these games like the Whispering Vault and many other things, you are the waters are muddled by the fact that there are so many rules and mechanism and sign this and sign that, and it works that you play and sometimes you forgot this thing and because you're too focused on your part, on your rolling the dice on something.
Right.
And
And you forget to incorporate what is actually happening based on what
yeah,
somebody said, but or rather what is available to be included. But I
yeah,
think,
like the
yeah,
idea of I have a great skill of mending, and so I'm thinking about mending this thing, but then the situation changed, but you really didn't acknowledge that
right,
because
right.
you are focusing on that single action that defines your character because the scores
Well,
are
that's
big.
writing. That's the trouble. You're writing ahead of play, aren't you? You're
Mhm.
writing. And I think that's the big curse. I think that if the game master has two undeserved responsibilities, okay? Undeserved and unnecessary perceived responsibilities. One of them is that they are in charge of all the rules and it's their fault if anybody screws up a rule,
Mhm.
right? That the game master is supposed to be, crouched there for the rules use. And as far as democratizing anything is concerned, that's the one thing that I want democratized, right? Nobody is ultimately responsible for anybody following rules correctly, but we all want it to happen and we're all enjoying it and we help each other. And that's it. So nobody's being corrected. You see what I mean?
Mhm.
Everybody's working through doing this as well as we can. And, you know, nobody gets penalty points, if you see what I mean, for that. So that's one thing I think needs to be democratized and taken away from the game master as such, so that there's four people who would love to play this game well, rules wise. We'll help each other do it. So that's one thing. The other one is the worst one, and that's what I was just talking about. And this is players just as much as GMs, but for some reason the game master has culturally identified it as something that they're supposed to do, which is to write ahead of play. You're writing ahead of play. Where is this going to go? How is this going to, how am I going to get this to happen? If they do this, well, then this ought to happen next, and stuff like that. And that's very different from playing your characters as responsive, right? If you have non-player characters who are very powerful or something and they act responsively, they respond, right? They do things. That's fine. But I'm talking about outcomes, planning outcomes. When, oh, it'll be so cool when, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And that's why I'm so intent on the difference between situational authorities and how they are constructed and outcome authorities and how they are constructed. Right? It's huge. Um, Especially because people seem to think that talking, if a game master talks, that it is necessarily overriding all procedure.
Mhm.
And that's ridiculous. That's just not play. So these are the things that culturally, anybody who says I'm going to GM this game, the number of people who've managed to throw off those responsibilities, to throw those away and just not even think about them, it's not even real to them that anybody would be responsible for how well the story goes, that anybody would be responsible for knowing and managing all the rules. If the number of people who've actually thrown those off in practice, how many of people are those? Right? I have been going through a process like a Finnish sauna for 5 years, doing this out of play thing, trying to really and truly get rid of that. And it is not hard to see when I'm playing with lots of other people. Not only people, it's kind of a toss up. Either the GM has worked quite hard and has done very well in getting rid of these things but the players are all in toxic space where they're trying to defend and adapt to it or be compliant, right? Or it's the other way around. The players are ready to hit the ground, and the GM is like trapped. Even though outside of play they would say, "Oh, I don't want to do that," but inside play they panic, and they have to they just can't imagine not having their NPC suddenly show up and give you this fascinating information, regardless of who the NPC even fucking is. Right? You see what I mean? I mean, they panic and they start blithering about how getting play here or telling you how your characters feel or what they suddenly know and stuff like that. So but it's really to focus on those two things, killing the GM, not GMing, right? GMing's great, concentration of authorities in a particular way, fantastic. We need some of that.
I know that I felt hard with these sensations during our play. I'm not going to lie, it's I suppose it's an eternal process. The idea that I'm not responsible for everyone having fun, which is the root of all evils.
Right, exactly, but easy to say, right?
Yeah.
Not as easy to do.
The fact that I can have fun and people can have fun is not really working, because the moment we have this social activity together, you're obviously invested in the group that you created. Even if they're total strangers, you feel that there's a contract that binds you to the others, so that you're legally mandated to provide this kind of fun that they're talking about.
Every single bit of gamer discourse and the majority of the texts either say that you're supposed to do that, or in the modern day have fallen into the trap of telling you that you're supposed to compete for it. So it's very difficult, to say, look, let's get rid of those things, but we have to recognize that we are literally stepping out of the hobby subculture, to some extent. But look at how many people left role-playing in disgust because they couldn't stand the subculture anymore and are rediscovering the activity. Well, let's make sure not to get sucked all the way back in, okay?
Yeah, I believe that in closing, that's for me, the experience of the Whispering Vault was interesting because I want to get better at understanding the games, not just in terms of reading them and absorbing the rules, but the idea that under those rules there were certain lines of thoughts, and then you can say, okay, this line of thoughts is good, and not just good to me, but good because it reflects some kind of reasoning that I can really say it was logic and sound, or or at the contrary, the idea that some rules are just a pain in the ass and they do not work. That's why I'm interested in, and say, Blades and even Burning Wheel, because I want to comprehend by not just reading them, but by doing something with them.
I completely agree.
They work or not.
I strongly agree with that. I have been surprised too many times, and then I stopped being surprised because I stopped having expectations. I learned my lesson that playing certain games that I thought were going to be just an exercise in some quirky, amateurish or unconsidered rule set, turned into me realizing that there was real design here, born out of real play, that does something that no other game I know does. That doesn't mean the game is perfect, but it means that this has something very powerful to teach us. if we play it. And then the converse, when you have a game and you say, okay, this is a professional piece of work, the right people were involved. It's, look at how well it reads, it makes so much sense going through. I can visualize play. I'm ready. Okay, everybody, let's play. And we suddenly realize that we are looking at a badly boiled potato. I mean, not only is it not particularly tasty or good to eat, it isn't anything but a potato anyway. And you're just going, okay, this $40 book would, I hate to say this because I love books, but the universe doesn't really need this book. I have a million other games that this book is nothing but a bad Xerox of, and why do I have this object? So, and I have been fooled both directions too many times. Now I have no expectations. It's just a title and a bunch of pages. Let's hit the table. Right. So anyway, Noah, Pedro, you guys have anything else to say goodbye or?
No, I would just say that for me it was a really nice experience. I never played the game.
Mm-hmm.
I remember from when I found the Forge, which was years later after it closed. But I remember some threads where Ron was talking about it. So when you guys started playing it, I remember, it's Whispering Vault, it's that game that Ron talked about quite a lot.
Not only that, I mean, if it's your game. I mean, playing the Whispering Vault, you're like, why isn't Pedro at the table? I mean,
yeah. What I was going to say is thank you very much for inviting me, because it was a really good experience, and I wanted to.
It's a bit of a go-to. I do think that it's a game that can teach you a lot about who you are and how you play and what you're bringing to it. And so I definitely will continue to be recommending it to people.
It feels like solid enough that if I wasn't feeling like really inspired, which is often how I choose a game, because I'm like, God, like we got to play this game. But like if I wasn't in that space, like go play the Whispering Vault. Like I don't know, it seems very robust.
Yeah, you know that you can pick it up and the wheels may turn very nicely. Right. Right. All right. Thanks everybody. Noah, thanks for staying awake.
Thank you guys too, because it was a pleasure to meet you too, because I never played with Adriano or Noah, so it was great. Also, just wanted to say that it was great to meet you guys.
Yeah, I really hope we can play again.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll talk to you guys later.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
It was great. See you guys again.
Bye.